Hi, this is Judy at Judy in the Kitchen. Today I'm going to show you how to make my whole wheat flax bread. This is a bread I used to make all the time in my bakery and I sold lots of it. It was a very popular bread. The recipe comes straight out of my cookbook, Secrets of a Professional Baker. If you're interested in a copy, there's a link on the screen. If not, but you still want a printed version of the recipe, there's another link on the screen where you can go and download a PDF version of the recipe. As you can see, I've got a large mixing bowl here. I'm going to make this bread in my stand mixer. You don't have to do that. You can knead it by hand if you want. And in this bowl, I have a combination of 1 pound of bread flour. That would be equivalent to about 3 1/4 cups of bread flour. And 7 1/2 ounces of whole wheat flour, which is about 1 1/2 cups of whole wheat flour. To that, I am going to add 1/4 ounce of RapidRise yeast, and that's equivalent to 2 1/4 teaspoons. 1 teaspoon of salt, and 1/4 teaspoon of ground flaxseed or flax meal. And just a hint on that, I do store mine in the freezer. If you don't store it in the freezer, I suggest you store it in the refrigerator. That stuff is perishable. Okay, so now I'm just going to stir this together just to combine the dry ingredients. And in this measuring cup, I already have a combination of 1 1/3 cups of milk, 1/3 cup of honey, and 1 1/2 ounces or 3 tablespoons of butter, and yep, that's the real thing. And I've warmed it up to between 120 and 130 degrees Fahrenheit, and that's where an instant read thermometer comes in handy for that. And I'm just going to pour that warmed liquid into my dry mix, and to that I'm going to also add 2 whole eggs. And yeah, you could beat them up a little bit beforehand, but I figured this is going to be beaten up plenty. I'm not going to worry about it, but I'm going to stir this just enough so that I can moisten the flour mixture, the dry mixture, and that'll keep me from having flour dust sprayed all over the kitchen. And if you're going to do this by hand, you just mix it like this until you do moisten those dry ingredients, and then put it on a lightly floured board and knead it for about 8 to 10 minutes until it's really good and smooth. And I'm going to put this in my mixer on a medium-low speed with the dough hook. And again, that's going to knead for 8 to 10 minutes. And I will show you what this looks like after it's kneaded. My bread has kneaded for about 10 minutes, and you can see it's good and smooth. And now we want to let it rest for another 10 minutes. And I'm going to coat this with some nonstick spray, and then I'm going to cover it with a clean towel and let it rest for 10 minutes. If you don't want to use the nonstick spray, you could put just a dab of olive oil or something like that, your oil of choice on there. You could also take a small sheet of wax paper and put that over there and then put a towel on top. The main thing is you want to prevent moisture loss, whatever you do. And then I'm going to put this in on a warm place. On top of my oven is where I'm going to put it for 10 minutes. In the meantime, the light is turned on in my oven so I can warm it up. I do not turn the oven on at this time, but I warm it up with a light bulb. And I also take a pan of water, a medium-sized pan, bring it to a boil, and then after it comes to a boil, I'm going to put it on the bottom rack in the oven, and that is going to be the moisture and the warmth for this bread to rise once the loaves are formed. And we're going to make 2 loaves out of this. My dough has rested for 10 minutes, and I've turned it out onto a lightly floured board, and I'm just going to turn it a time or two just to get some flour on there and make it a little bit easier to work with. And then I'm going to just divide it into 2 parts that are roughly equal. And then I'm going to form 2 loaves out of this and put each half into an 8 by 5 pan that I've sprayed with nonstick spray. You could coat it with oil of your choice. But there's one. And now we'll do the other. And then I'm going to put these in my oven that is warmed by the heat of the light bulb and also by that pan of boiling water that's sitting on the bottom rack. And I'm going to put these on the top rack, which is in the middle of the oven, and allow them to rise in there. I don't want to cover these. I don't want to spray these. The moisture from that pan of hot water is going to be wonderful, and it'll allow this dough to proof beautifully. And it's going to take roughly 30 minutes. We'll check it, and I'll show you what it looks like when it's finished proofing. My loaves have risen and they look wonderful. So now I've taken that pan of hot water out of the oven and I have it preheating for 350 degrees Fahrenheit. And when the oven is preheated, these are going to go in there on the rack in the middle of the oven, and they're going to bake for about 30 minutes until they're golden. Our bread is baked, and they baked right at 30 minutes, and they are just heavenly. I want to show you how brushing a little bit of melted butter over them just transforms them from something great and wonderful to something out of this world. It just makes them look so much better when you brush a little bit of melted butter over them, and this is real butter. It just adds a good flavor and a nice gloss, and it evens out the color of the top. Really, really yummy. Allow them to cool completely before cutting them, unless you're going to eat that whole loaf. What happens if you cut them while they're still hot? Moisture is going to pour out of the slices, and what's left around the slice is going to wind up being dry because a lot of the moisture is just going to escape through the steam. So that's why it's suggested that you do not cut bread when it's really hot, unless you're just going to turn around and serve the entire loaf. This bread is fabulous. Let me urge you to give this recipe a try. Leave some comments in the comments below if you have any questions, or let me know how it turns out for you. This is Judy at Judy in the Kitchen. Have a great day.